Hazur, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I have two questions, if I permit to ask two. I was at the Hartlepool. I was at the Hartlepool forum where a gentleman asked about our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Hajj, whereas why Ahmadis can't go there. You get, to me, the best answer I've ever heard, but there was a colleague who was with me who wasn't convinced. He wanted to know why, if the Holy Prophet ﷺ was a perfect man, well, why was his sins needed forgiving for the future? I was happy with the answer, but if you could answer it again, because I'm keen to tell him the answer.
You see, this promise which is mentioned in the Holy Quran, in fact, is a prophecy by God all-knowing that this Prophet of Allah is above sin. So it's expressed in a very beautiful way, by way of reward for perfect submission at the time of extreme trial. A submission to the will of Allah, which was so pleasing to God that He wanted to reward it. But the reward, in my opinion, was this declaration that this man is above sin. Otherwise, we believe all prophets of Allah are innocent. They can't sin. But another reason why this was said so, I believe, is that despite the fact that the prophets are told by God that you are sinless, and they know it, of course, to a degree, yet in their humility, they see small specks as human failings to be sins. So, as the standard of piety rises, so also the realization of sin becomes enlarged, and one begins to see sins where there are no sins but just normal human failings. So in that regard, we must always translate the word sin when it is used against the prophets as having a different connotation than when it is applied to ordinary sinful people. Sin in the sight of a prophet, as he becomes not only perfect in the sense that he constantly improves in his conduct, in his attitude to God. So every stage of his life is perfect, but not in the sense of final absolute perfectness. Absolute perfection, because absolutely perfect is only God. So that is why I have to explain this. Being perfect, he can still be better. That is also a point which is well established from the Holy Quran. وَلَلْ آخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Every other moment that comes in your life is better than the previous one. So, in my opinion, the word perfection has also to be fully understood. In this particular regard, I think perfection should mean that a person is sinless as far as he understands sin. But his understanding of sin goes on broadening. And things which are very small specks, even things which are counted not as failings but as achievements in case of ordinary people, begin to appear in the sight of these perfect people as failings and sins. In their humility, they keep seeking forgiveness of Allah for all these small things. So as you also observe the same phenomenon in ordinary life, where when there are higher expectations from a person of a noble birth, there he is taunted for even the smallest failing, while the person who taunts him ordinarily leads a life which is so full of defects and even crimes. So this is a relative matter, a question of relativity. So in that light, in that background, now if I return to that verse of the Holy Quran, I believe God gave him this glad tidings that even if you think that you have sinned, we know you don't sin, but even if you think you have sinned, even if you are repentant at something which you consider failing, we declare that from now on all your so-called, inverted comma sins are forgiven forever. So these are very minute areas of understanding of such verses. Because there was not time for that explanation during that session, so I just passed by. I hope you have got the answer now.
I have, most certainly.
You will be able to, I hope, satisfy the person whom you want to.
I certainly will. My other question is, I was listening to one of your tapes a week ago. You were talking on the Prophet Jonah and the Prophet Zechariah.
Right.
The thing that I'm very curious about is you commented on how a lot of Ahmadis, when they speak about Prophet Jesus, peace be upon him, whereas we quote something from the Bible, or the 3 days and the 3 nights.
Right.
My question is, how, if we can't preach that way, or not to use that because the Holy Quran doesn't speak of it, well, what way should we use that for our own?
You see, this question of Jonah is still a question of debatable identity. Even from the study of Bible, the scholars have not yet been satisfied as to who Jonah was and where he was born and where was Nineveh. It is the same Nineveh as we know now, or it was a different place. So a lot of debate is going on regarding the identity of Jonah, his place of origin, and where this prophecy came to be fulfilled. According to the biblical statements, as understood today by the biblical scholars, he was not born in that part where we understand him to have been born, where this event has to be taken place. But he was born on the western coast of Palestine somewhere. No, not born, but he took the ship, the famous boat, from the western port. I don't remember the name, but I mentioned it perhaps in my khutbah. And there he failed in his trust in God. And as such, God sent him back, punished him and sent him back, and all this story. Now, because of there being so much confusion and contradiction in the biblical account, what I did was, I said, let us take the whole episode from the ordinary, point of view of common sense and logic. Let's consider the two statements and compare them from the logical point of view. Which story holds water, which does not. So as such, I debunked the story of Jonah as generally reported from the biblical sources and understood by the biblical scholars. And spoke on the subject of the Quranic treatment of the same, and said this is not only logical, this is exactly how it did happen, because the events are well connected in a chain of events and everything is understandable, logical and natural. So that was the general import of the khutbah or sermon which you are referring to. Now, in the light of this explanation, I would like you to reframe your question and let me know exactly what you want to know from me about this.
Just that, how should elderly people now, when they used to use that as a way of preaching, what way should we